It's being called the vote that exposed the WNBA's silent civil war. On one side, you have millions of fans, new and old, who voted in record-breaking numbers to make Caitlin Clark the captain of the All-Star team and put Angel Reese right alongside her among the league's most popular players. But on the other side, you have the players themselves, and their verdict was brutal. When the weighted scores were tallied, the ones that combine the fan vote with votes from a media panel and most critically from the WNBA players themselves, the result was a political earthquake. The players, the women who share the court with them night after night, ranked Caitlin Clark as the 9th best guard in the league. And Angel Reese, they ranked her 12th among frontcourt players. This wasn't just a snub. For the two athletes single-handedly driving the league's economic boom, this felt like a coordinated message sent from inside the locker room. So the question that's been tearing through the league is, why? What did the players see that the fans didn't? Here at The Narrative, we filter out the noise to connect the dots. And if you're committed to uncovering the real story behind the headlines, do us a favor and hit that like button. It's a small click that tells us we're on the right track. Now, the easy answer, the one being blasted across major networks, comes from prominent figures like ESPN's Dick Vitale, who immediately declared the vote against Clark was motivated by one thing and one thing only: pure jealousy. And on the surface, it's an easy narrative to believe.
So lads, Caitlin Clark led the WNBA in All-Star voting. Obviously led the WNBA in All-Star voting. Like, I don't think anyone is shocked by that. If somebody is surprised by Caitlin Clark leading the WNBA in All-Star voting, you've been living under a rock. It's obvious. She was always going to lead.
That's the core of the jealousy argument right there. The logic is simple. The veterans who have toiled in the league for years for a fraction of the attention see these two rookies come in and instantly become the faces of the entire sport. They see the sold-out arenas, the record-breaking TV deals on the horizon, the multi-million-dollar endorsement deals, and they feel erased from their own league. From that perspective, the All-Star ballot becomes the perfect weapon to put the rookies back in their place. A quiet, anonymous way to say, you may have the fans and the media, but you don't have our respect. But as you, the narrative analysts, already know, the easy answer is rarely the complete one. The jealousy narrative is explosive, it gets clicks, but it's also lazy. It ignores the complex politics, the unwritten rules of a professional locker room, and the on-court data that players and coaches look at, but fans often ignore. The truth of why Clark and Reese were really snubbed by their peers is far more complicated, and it exposes a fundamental schism in the WNBA over what truly defines a star. And the story doesn't end there. To truly understand the power of the jealousy narrative, we have to look at the numbers, not the box score numbers, but the financial ones. The WNBA is currently in the middle of a historic economic explosion, and it's almost entirely attributable to the arrival of the 2024 rookie class, led by Clark and Reese. We're talking about a league experiencing soaring attendance, shattering television ratings records, and staring down a landmark new media rights deal that could change the financial future for every player. This isn't just growth, it's a paradigm shift, with new expansion franchises on the way in Toronto, Portland, and beyond. And at the center of that storm are these two rookies. The league and its broadcast partners have leaned into the narrative so heavily that they scheduled 5 nationally televised matchups between the Indiana Fever and Chicago Sky this season alone. Think about that from the perspective of a multi-year veteran, an all-star in their own right. For years, they've fought for every scrap of media attention, begging for their games to be put on national television. Now the entire media ecosystem seems to revolve around the drama between two players who haven't even completed their second season. Every on-court incident, like the flagrant foul between Clark and Reese in their first professional meeting, is instantly amplified and dissected for days, reigniting the same polarized debates from their college days.
Part of 2 years, maybe even 3 years, the mainstream media has been trying to convince us that Angel Reese is a huge star.
That sentiment that the media has been forcing this narrative is a key piece of the puzzle. Imagine being a player like Napheesa Collier or A'ja Wilson, MVPs, champions, the undisputed best players in the world. Yet the conversation is dominated by a narrative many inside the league see as a media fabrication. Can you really blame a veteran player for feeling a sense of frustration or even resentment? Is it truly jealousy, or is it a justified defense of their own hard-won territory? Let me know your initial thoughts on this in the comments below. Is the jealousy from vets justified, or is it just sour grapes? It's a compelling case, and frankly, it's where most other channels have ended their analysis. But this is where we start digging deeper. Because when you filter out the emotional noise and look at the hard data, the advanced metrics that players in front offices use to truly evaluate performance, a completely different story begins to emerge. A story that suggests this wasn't an emotional vote at all, but a cold, calculated, professional reckoning. Okay, so let's put the jealousy theory on the shelf for a moment and step into the mind of a WNBA veteran. When a player fills out their All-Star ballot, they aren't voting for who has the best commercials or who sells the most tickets. They are voting based on a code of professional respect, built on fundamentals. They vote for players who make the right basketball play, who are efficient, who play on both ends of the floor, and who don't beat themselves with unforced errors. And this is where the popular narrative around Caitlin Clark collides with a harsh, statistical reality. For fans, Clark is a phenomenon, a human highlight reel, whose incredible passing and limitless range are redefining the game. No one disputes her talent.
An up and down season for her, relatively speaking, because she's been in and out of the lineup. Collier did miss a few games with a back issue as well. And of course, Clark had the shooting slump before she went out with the latest injury. Don't know how much that was related or is related, but Clark's impact on the floor is apparent when you see her there and when you see her off. And her numbers are still awesome. Not to mention, she's by far the most popular player in the league, and this is decided by fan voting.
And that commentator is right. From a fan and media perspective, her impact is undeniable. But here's the critical disconnect. Players don't grade on a curve for popularity. They look at the film and they look at the stat sheet. And when they look at Caitlin Clark's numbers, they see glaring issues that simply cannot be ignored. The biggest issue is her turnovers. Let's be very clear about this because it's a point that often gets buried under the highlights. In her rookie season, Caitlin Clark didn't just turn the ball over a lot, she set the all-time WNBA single-season record for turnovers with an average of 5.6 per game. And this season, that number has actually gotten worse, climbing to 5.9 turnovers per game through her first 9 contests. To a professional point guard, that number isn't just a flaw, it's a cardinal sin. It represents nearly 6 possessions per game that are given away before your team even gets a shot. It's a sign of high-risk play that, while sometimes spectacular, often hurts the team more than it helps. Add to that her documented struggles on the defensive end and a notable drop in her shooting efficiency this season, with both her field goal and three-point percentages declining from her rookie year. Suddenly, the player's vote starts to look less like jealousy and more like a professional critique. They aren't necessarily saying she isn't a star, they're saying that based on the criteria that they value, ball security, efficiency, two-way impact, she hasn't earned the rank of a top-tier guard. Not yet. It's a tough but logical assessment, and it has nothing to do with her endorsement deals. And as we're about to see, that same ruthless logic was applied to Angel Reese. And if the player's critique of Clark was about valuing ball security over highlight reel plays, their judgment on Angel Reese was just as ruthless, but focused on a completely different and arguably more fundamental aspect of the game. On the surface, Reese's stats look like a walking double-double. The competitor videos will flash her rebounding numbers on screen and ask how the league's most dominant force on the glass could possibly be ignored. But her peers aren't just looking at the rebound column. They're looking at how those rebounds are happening. They're looking at her efficiency. And the numbers are, frankly, shocking for a player of her size and position. The central weakness in Reese's game, the one that gets exposed on film, is her inability to finish at the rim. Through 16 games this season, she was shooting just 46.1% on attempts from less than 5 feet away. An even earlier analysis was more damning, noting that her conversion rate in the restricted area was a historically low 31.8% for a high-volume player. For a 6'3" forward, that is a massive red flag. It's the statistical validation behind the me bounds narrative that critics have weaponized against her.
I ain't gonna lie this bitch so trash. Y'all gotta understand, she gets so many rebounds because she missed the layup 50 times before even getting fouled for real. You got sports bettors making thousands and thousands of dollars on her missing her first shot. Like, how you that tall and close to the rim and you can't even make one layup game? They pay your ass way too much money for this shit. Meanwhile, Clayton Clark got this bitch playing like Steph Curry. She missed so much they gave her her own slogan. They call her ass knee-bound. I'ma miss the layup, I'ma get it rebound, and I'ma miss the layup.
That commentator is being blunt, but he's verbalizing what the data suggests. To other players, particularly veterans, seeing a primary post player consistently fail to convert easy opportunities at the rim isn't just a slump. It's a sign of a fundamental weakness in either strength, touch, or post-move development. When your own missed layups are a primary source of your rebounds, it raises serious questions about your offensive impact. Now, to be fair, the narrative that Reese has regressed in virtually every statistical category as the competitor video claimed is factually inaccurate. Her role on the sky has clearly changed under coach Tyler Marsh. Her assists per game have literally doubled from 1.9 to 3.8 as she's been tasked with being more of a playmaker. But that new responsibility has come at a cost. Her turnovers have also jumped significantly, from 2.2 to 3.4 per game. So when her peers look at her performance, they don't just see a rebounding machine. They see a player with historic inefficiency near the basket and a rising turnover rate. Once again, it paints a picture not of personal jealousy, but of a professional assessment that prioritizes efficiency over raw volume stats. And it leads us to a unified theory that ties both of these snubs together. So, we have two stars, both with massive fan followings, but both with clear, undeniable flaws in their games that professionals would penalize. But the story goes even deeper than that. This isn't just about turnovers or field goal percentages. This is about the soul of the league itself. The unified theory that connects the votes against both Clark and Reese is this: it wasn't an attack on them as individual players. It was a collective, unified rejection of the media narrative they've been forced to carry. For over a year, the league and its media partners have relentlessly pushed the Clark versus Reese rivalry. It's been framed as a battle of good versus evil, hero versus villain, with cultural and racial undertones that many find deeply uncomfortable. It's a narrative that generates clicks and ratings, but one that many players feel is a gross oversimplification of the sport they dedicate their lives to.
Because everybody's trying to make this about a, come on, black man, protect the sisters, brother. This ain't racial. This is about sports. This is about athletic ability. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at Caitlin Clark's game, who's very reminiscent of a Steph Curry based on her range and the three, plus everything else she does. And then you look at Angel Reese, stop it.
That kind of commentary, which pits one player against the other in such a stark way, is exactly what veteran players are pushing back against. And you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to the words of one of the most respected voices in the sport, former MVP and champion Candace Parker. When asked about the rivalry, she called it meaningless and apples and oranges. She flatly stated, "I'm not falling into that comparison." That is a powerful statement from a legend of the game. It's a direct refusal to participate in the manufactured drama. And she's not the only one. Even the two stars at the center of the storm have tried to de-escalate it. Caitlin Clark herself has called the controversy surrounding their relationship fabricated and made up. So, if the veterans who run the league and even the players themselves believe the rivalry is meaningless and fabricated, what does that make the All-Star ballot? It makes it the perfect opportunity for a silent protest. It was their one official, anonymous platform to tell the league and the media, "We reject your narrative. We will not reward the players you've propped up for the sake of a fake storyline. This league is about basketball, not about soap operas." Seen through that lens, the low votes for both Clark and Reese suddenly make perfect sense. It's a unified message from a locker room that is tired of the drama. So what is the fallout from a vote like this? When an entire section of the league led by its veterans sends such a clear and unified message, it doesn't just disappear into the news cycle. It creates a schism. It exposes the cultural fault lines running just beneath the surface, a division between the old guard, who value tradition and fundamental play, and the new school, whose immense popularity is rooted in a different kind of cultural currency. This is the real consequence. It's not about a single player's emotional reaction. The competitor videos with titles suggesting Angel Reese went off after being kicked out are trying to sell you a simple story of individual drama, but they are actively ignoring the much larger, more significant story of institutional conflict. And to prove how untrustworthy their narrative is, we need to talk about the most damaging and demonstrably false claim made in their video. They built a core part of their argument on the idea that Reese was benched during crunch time in a comeback victory, claiming it was the ultimate indictment of her negative impact. But let's look at the facts from the game they're referencing: the Sky's 97-86 victory over the Sparks on June 24th. The claim was that Reese watched from the sidelines as her teammate Kamilla Cardoso led the team to victory. The reality? Angel Reese played 32.5 minutes in that game, more than Cardoso. She wasn't a liability. She had a dominant performance, putting up 18 points, a game-high 7.
Game logs and video highlights confirm both she and Cardoso were on the court together for key possessions down the stretch, leading the 30-17 fourth-quarter comeback that won them the game. This wasn't a misinterpretation of an event. It was a complete fabrication invented out of thin air to prop up a negative narrative. And this is why the players' protest vote becomes so significant. They are not just pushing back against a rivalry, they are pushing back against a media ecosystem that is willing to invent facts to create drama. This is the real battle line: the manufactured narratives versus the on-court reality. And that vote was the players' attempt to force everyone to pay attention to what's real. But it leaves the WNBA itself in an almost impossible position. So how does the WNBA front office navigate a situation like this? On one hand, the Clark Reese phenomenon is a golden goose. It's the driving force behind the league's massive economic boom, fueling everything from soaring ticket sales to the launch of new franchises in cities like Toronto, Philadelphia, and Detroit. The league has a fiduciary duty to its owners and players to capitalize on this unprecedented wave of attention, especially with a new media rights deal on the horizon that could secure their financial future for a generation. But on the other hand, the very narrative that's making them rich is creating a toxic internal culture and a deep resentment among the veteran players who are the league's foundation. This is the double-edged sword the league has to handle. They are selling a rivalry that their own players have now publicly rejected through their vote. You can see this impossible balancing act playing out in real time within the Chicago Sky's own front office. Look at the team's coach, Tyler Marsh. He has a long-term vision. He has publicly stated his goal is to develop Angel Reese into a multi-dimensional player and a facilitator, which is why he's giving her more ball-handling duties. That coaching strategy directly explains both her spike in assists and her spike in turnovers. It's a development plan that requires patience. But the media's hunger for instant drama and hot takes doesn't allow for patience. The coach is trying to build a complete basketball player, while the narrative machine demands a simple, easy-to-digest character. Then you have the Sky's general manager, Jeff Pagliocca. He has to walk an even finer line. Publicly, he feeds the beast, giving quotes that the team needs more production out of Reese, and that her slow development is a problem they need to solve. But in other contexts, he defends her fiercely, praising her competitiveness, and stating unequivocally that she puts basketball first. This isn't hypocrisy, it's a survival tactic. The league, its teams, and its coaches are all caught in the same bind. They have to publicly play along with the high-stakes narrative because it brings in the money and attention, while privately trying to do the actual work of player development and team building away from the glare of the cameras. But the All-Star vote just proved that the players are no longer willing to quietly play along. This entire situation funnels down to a critical crossroads, particularly for Angel Reese. The competitor video you saw wants to paint her as a finished story, a cautionary tale about college hype failing to meet professional reality. But the truth is, her story is far from over. This All-Star vote wasn't an ending, it was a defining moment that presents her with two very clear and very different paths forward. Path 1 is the path of the professional. She can take the message from her peers, that 12th place ranking, as the ultimate motivation. She can spend the off-season in the gym dedicating herself to fixing the clear holes in her game, her finishing at the rim, her decision-making as a facilitator. She can come back next season a more efficient, more disciplined player and force a reevaluation from the very players and media who wrote her off. This is the path of silent work and on-court vindication. But there is another path. Path 2 is the path of the modern mogul. Instead of fighting the narrative, she can lean into it. She can embrace the villain persona that has been projected onto her and monetize the controversy. And we have concrete proof this is on her mind. When critics coined the term "me bounds" to mock her, she didn't just get angry, she trademarked it. She saw the criticism not as an insult, but as a business opportunity, publicly stating that the brand alone is 6 figures right there. This creates a fascinating and conflicting public persona, one that leaves her open to accusations of being disingenuous.
You're crying on the podium about how people hate you, and then you want to get in videos like this and say, I love the trolling. Pick a side. What side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the villain side that you don't care about trolling, or do you want to be on the victim side crying about how people hate you and how your crown is heavy? What is it? You're so fake, bro. This is why we don't like you.
That question, which side do you want to be on, is the central question of her career. Does she want to be the victim of unfair criticism who proves everyone wrong on the court, or does she want to be the savvy anti-hero who proves you can build an empire off the very criticism meant to tear you down? Both are viable strategies in the modern world of sports and entertainment, but they are fundamentally at odds. The choice she makes will define not only her career, but the very nature of what it means to be a star athlete in this new era. What do you think is the smarter play for her? Let me know in the comments. Should she focus on the court or on the brand? In the end, the 2025 All-Star vote was so much more than a simple snub. It wasn't just a case of pure jealousy, nor was it solely a critique of one player's turnovers or another's shooting percentage. It was a complex political act. It was a silent verdict delivered by the league's veterans, a professional reckoning on what they value on the court, and a powerful protest against a media narrative they feel has spiraled out of control. This vote exposed the deep cultural divide between the league's established stars and its new wave of phenoms, and it has forced the WNBA to confront the reality that its greatest financial asset might also be its most corrosive internal conflict. The consequences of this vote are still unfolding, and the aftershocks will be felt for seasons to come. So, after connecting all the dots, I have to ask, what's your take? In the end, who do you believe sent the stronger message? Was it the fans whose record-breaking votes demanded that the league's biggest names take center stage? Or was it the players whose silent protests tried to reclaim the soul of their league? Let us know your final verdict in the comments below. And if you believe there's always a story behind the story, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, because our investigation never stops. Finally, if you know someone who only heard the mainstream jealousy talking points, share this video. Help them see the real game being played behind the scenes.